the focus of today is the new professional development zone. So let's go there. This professional development zone is a mentoring the mentor area. So it's professional development for professionals working in this area. And there you can find learning blocks on a variety of intercultural learning topics. So there are, just as some examples, some more DEI-focused courses such as intersectionality, microaggression, indigeneity, social justice. There are assessment-oriented topics like training for particular instruments, how to choose assessments, how to actually engage in qualitative coding of learning artifacts, and then other general learning, global learning topics, such as creating your own activities, how to engage in high-quality facilitation, and on virtual exchange. Block may be an unfamiliar term to you. We chose this because we really wanted to emphasize that lifelong learning nature of what it is that we're doing here. You can see the tiles over here on the right, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper and zoom in and look at and see what some of the information is there. But the general idea is that these are building blocks, and we don't like the check the box approach where, oh, I did that, I'm an expert now, and I'm done because I completed, a course. Instead, we conceptualize this as continually coming back to the professional development zone in order to find more blocks to add to your foundation of knowledge and skills. When you log in to the Intercultural Learning Hub, and by the way, the HubICL recently has gone completely open access so that you actually don't need a member account. You can just use anything there. It's all free for you to use until the moment where you go to enter something in. So in order to protect the content, if you are contributing to the HubICL, that's when you need to create an account and log in. But the professional development zone is one of the areas that's protected. And although you may not be contributing a course, you still need to log in order to interact with the professional development zone, because it's going to track, for example, if you want to save courses or learning experiences blocks that look interesting to you. So if you register for and complete blocks, then that's tracked for you and you get sort of micro-credentialing within the Intercultural Learning Hub. So you can see here a couple of examples of this is what it looks like if you have either saved or completed blocks. Now there are blocks, content in the professional development zone that are not generated by, not offered by SILMAR. So I mentioned earlier, this is a user-driven site, so people are free to put content in here that is not from Purdue, not from SILMAR, and we encourage that. The difference is that many times those additional learning opportunities are fee-based, they're not free, so putting them into the HubICL, finding out about them in the HubICL is free, but when you go to actually register for some of those outside learning activities, or experiences, you'll see that there's a cost associated with them. Whereas the blocks that SILMAR is creating that live inside the HubICL, those are free and open access. So here's a few examples of different colleagues and peer institutions and entrepreneurs out there, consulting groups who are offering different professional development blocks. So you can see, obviously, there's fees associated with each one of these because folks got to make a living. But again, there's lots of options that are free and open access beyond these offerings from our external partners. So you can click into any of those tiles and get more information about those blocks. The tile is just sort of at a glance look at the block. And then when you click into it, you can see all the information that was in the tile, as well as additional details when you keep scrolling down below. So we'll see that in just a second. But this example of the Meta Principal certification, you can see how long it lasts, what the audience is, what level it's offered at, if there's any prerequisites that you would have to take before you entered into this experience, what the cost is, and of course there's a link to register there. And you can save it if you're interested in possibly pursuing it at a later time. Let's actually dive a little bit deeper, though, into one of these free self-learning blocks. These are the ones that actually live inside the HubICL and they're open access. So here's an example of that. We've got facilitating learning with intercultural and DEI outcomes. Same kind of information listed here for this as was the one that we just looked at, except you note that it's free And when you scroll down, you can see lots of additional information. You can see the learning objectives. There's a sort of an introduction to the course. I know it's really small text, so I'll just pick out a little bit of that to read. So it says, new to facilitating intercultural and DEI outcomes, have wet feet but are curious to dive deeper. In either case, this module has something to offer. So it gives you sort of a description of what you would be getting in the course, and it lists these explicit learning outcomes below, such as identify facilitation practices that you find meaningful, specify areas of growth for yourself as a facilitator, and reflect on how you've been shaped as a facilitator and how your positionality or your social identities may impact your work. So if that sounds interesting to you, you could look at the learning plan and see what's actually in the course. And that gives you just an outline of the content of the course. You could also look at notes and details, and gives you further information that the instructor or the creator of the course has written up to help people decide whether or not this content is for them. So if you read all that and you decide that this is something that you want to invest your time in, you can just click that register button right here, and it will take you into the course itself. Again, you're not leaving the HubICL site because all the content lives there inside the Intercultural Learning Hub. But if you click that register button, it's going to take you into the course. There's lots more information there. For example, other people who have taken the course might have reviewed it, so you can read what they have to say about the course. When you get ready to actually commit and say, yes, this is something I want to do, then you click this offerings tab right here, and there's a chance for you to enroll. So you're going to click that enroll button, and that gives you access to the course. There's no other, there's no fees to pay. There's no information for you to put in. You've already logged into the HubICL. It knows who you are. So you're good to go to start your learning. There's a sort of very simple learning management system here within the Intercultural Learning Hub. So you can see over the left-hand side, you can jump straight to discussions, for example, or check your progress through the course. But you probably want to start at this outline tab. That gives you, at a glance, the entire course content. And you can just click through. You see there are main sections like introduction and the first unit or module within this block. And underneath each one of those is activities. And we've tried to label them very informatively because they're going to jump straight to whatever that activity is. So if it's a video, it's going to say watch. If it's an article for you to read, it's going to say read. If it's a reflection, posting in a discussion board, it's going to tell you that that's what it is. So as you're working through this course, of course, every course has different content. It was built by different people and it has different learning outcomes, but they do have some things in common. And one of the things that all the courses share is that it does have a variety of learning activities because we want to engage learners in different ways. So you're going to find mediated content like videos and audio files, as well as activities for people to do, reflections to complete, whether that's more on an individual basis or whether it's in sort of discussion format with peers. And then there's always a capstone at the end, usually in Qualtrics. So it's going to send you into a Qualtrics to let us know that you have completed the course. And in that way, we can indicate that in the HubICL. When you go back to the professional development zone, you'll see in the dashboard that you're completed, and it will show up for you in your list of sort of transcripts, right, or badges. Now, if you're interested in badging and micro-credentialing that's more visible to the outside world, we are working right now on connecting the Intercultural Learning Hub to LinkedIn. So eventually, hopefully very soon, actually, there will be a seamless process for anything that you complete inside the HubICL will then be badged and show up, and if you have a LinkedIn account, and will be visible to anybody that you might be connected with. For example, if you're in a job search, or if you want your supervisor or whoever to see that you have been gaining expertise in a particular area. Once you have completed a course, the HubICL is also kind of smart about what it's going to recommend next. So when you go back to search for additional professional development opportunities or more blocks to explore inside the HubICL, you can toggle this switch and ask it to provide deep suggestions or wide suggestions. Okay, and what that means is that if you have completed a course or a list of courses, the search engine is going to look inside the HubICL and see either additional learning on that same topic. For example, if you started out at a beginner level or at an intermediate level on a particular topic, it's going to look and see, is there anything that we could challenge you with a little bit more, step up to maybe an advanced level, and offer you on a similar topic. If you have chosen to search wide, it's going to look for related or maybe unrelated topics, something you have not explored yet, and suggest something probably at a beginner level for you to try something new. So that's your choice in terms of how to get suggestions from the HubICL about what to learn next. So again, coming back to this idea that the HubICL is user-driven, we absolutely encourage you to add new blocks to the professional development zone. So if you are someone who offers professional development either within your institution, or if you are in a consulting group or an entrepreneur or whatever your role is, if you feel like you have something to offer to mentor other professionals in the space, either newcomers to the field or a niche that you have expertise in that they may not have expertise in, then we really would love to see your content in the HubICL. And of course, because of our mission of making things as open access as possible, we would encourage you to consider putting things in the block format so that the course lives in the HubICL and is free for folks. But if you need to make a living off of it, there is that other option where, as an external partner, you can essentially market and advertise within the HubICL and let folks know about what you're offering that would benefit them. So please reach out to us. The email here is silmar@purdue.edu, and we're happy to help you curate whatever content that you want to offer in the professional development zone or anywhere else in the HubICL. The other areas being, for example, the toolbox, collections, which is kind of like Pinterest, and a publication area. All right, that's all for today. Thank you very much.